I'd like to start by thanking Joe and Dave and the organizers of this conference. This is a great opportunity for us to catch up with investors that are based here in Vancouver, as well as meet new potential investors, and I think they do a great job of setting this up. We only have about 10 minutes today, so what I'd like to do is just a brief overview of who we are as Regulus, what our strategy is, and most importantly, talk about our Antiquary project. It's a large copper-gold discovery we have in northern Peru. Joe's kind of set the stage on how many Australian companies are aggressively moving into the Americas to purchase assets. We also see that many of the major copper mining companies right now are notably telegraphing that they'd like to move into large copper deposits, viewing copper as a green metal, and the green metal that has the largest market size to it, so it's very much of interest. It's kind of a funny stage in the market now where we have this tremendous optimism between Australians and large mining companies looking for assets, but the retail market being kind of quiet. I've described it as the most optimistic yet cash poor market I've been in my career, which is quite a long career right now. So we are a publicly traded company, so the appropriate disclaimers apply to us. The investment highlights of our company is we have a tier 1 asset in the making, our large Antiquary deposit. We have a proven strategy. This is our second company. The same management team formerly operated Antares Minerals. We made a large discovery in southern Peru called Akira that we sold to First Quantum in 2010 for $650 million. Our strategy is to identify underexplored assets that have potential to be large deposits, the type of deposit would be of interest to a major mining company, to drill those out and demonstrate the full size, to de-risk those, and then to monetize those by selling them to the company that will develop the project. We're explorers, and we're good at identifying projects. We drill them out to a certain stage, typically about a PEA or a pre-feasibility stage, and then ideally, we have a project that's attractive for a major company to purchase. We believe that we're entering into a market period in the market right now that's the sweet spot when if we can deliver a good project, companies will be looking for these type assets. Our project is in the northernmost part of Peru. It's in the region of Cajamarca. It's surrounded by a lot of major mining companies. You see on the left-hand side of the diagram, we have Yanacocha, South America's largest gold mine nearby to us, as well as a number of other large mines or large projects near to us. And then immediately adjacent to us, we have 2 operating mines. On the right-hand side of the diagram, in the center left, you can see some disturbance. That's the Tantuatay mine. That's a heap leach oxide gold operation. It's a partnership between Buenaventura and Southern Copper. They're mining the oxide cap over a very large copper-gold sulfide deposit. That copper-gold sulfide deposit has over 900 million tons of copper-gold sulfide mineralization in it. That same mineralization style extends onto our ground, which is shown in red and pink on this diagram. And we'll see that we've developed a fairly sizable amount of resource extending onto our ground there. And then in the lower right center of the diagram is Cerro Corona. That's operated by Goldfields. That's a milling operation for a copper-gold sulfide project. Important to note on this is both of these mines run out of ore in about 2025 to 2030. So 2 operating mines next door that run out of ore, and between Tantuatay and ourselves, we're sitting on the top of a large copper-gold sulfide deposit, which is the logical evolution for the district to move in the future. We acquired this project by merging with a company called Southern Legacy Peru in 2014. When we acquired the project, it had an inferred resource that had about 5.3 billion pounds of copper equivalent contained as an inferred resource based on limited amount of drilling. We just put out our first updated resource in March of this year. We've increased the size of it to about 8 billion pounds of copper equivalent on this, which is about half indicated and about half inferred. And we're entering into our phase 2 drill program right now. We anticipate about this time next year, we'll see a substantial increase in the deposit. So what have we achieved? The resource that we announced in March contains about 250 million tons at 0.48 copper, 0.29 grams per ton gold, and significant silver, so about a little over 0.7 copper equivalent. And we have 267 million tons of inferred grade at inferred mineralization at just slightly less grade. So combined over 500 million tons of mineralization. It's important to emphasize this is an interim resource. This is our first resource that we've announced. We anticipate this will substantially increase over the coming year. To put that in perspective, in copper equivalent, I've mentioned that it's about 8 billion pounds of copper equivalent. It's also over 16 million ounces of gold equivalent if we were to convert that. So these are large systems, and it's only the part of the mineralization that occurs on our ground. On the red claims in the diagram in the upper right, there's substantial mineralization onto the neighbor's ground as well. This just puts our resource into perspective in terms of a copper-gold plot, so copper in the vertical axis, gold in the horizontal axis. And one of the notable things is that combined grade that we have is comparable to many of the other interesting development copper-gold stories that are out there. Likewise, when we take a look at our inferred resource plotted on the same copper-gold plot on this, we can see in the yellow dots where that plots, the red dots show individual drill holes that have substantially better grade than our average grade. So this deposit has distinct, very high-grade zones within it, which are very attractive to groups that like to develop projects like this. So what have we achieved? The ground on here is in a kind of orangish color, or our ground. That's 100% our ground. In pink, we can earn a 70% interest on this. This is the 17,000 meters of historical drilling that existed when we inherited the project. We completed our first phase of drilling at 23,000 meters by the end of last year. That was used to put out the new resource update. And what we've done is we've taken the same drill pattern and extended the depth. Much of the early drilling was shallow. They hung holes in mineralization, and we added significant mineralization simply by deepening it. And we've just initiated our phase 2 program. And most notably, you can see in the upper left-hand, there's hole 30, which is a pretty substantial step out. It's a 500-meter step out. This hole bottomed in 300 meters of 0.4 copper equivalent. At the bottom of that hole at over a 500-meter step out from the other mineralization. Hole 26 has drawn a lot of interest in the market with 473 meters of 1.16% copper, 0.2 grams per ton gold. It's completely outside of our resource right now. So these holes are already extending mineralization as we're able to move to the north and complete more drilling. What do we think we have? The area we've been drilling sits right where you can see the density of drill holes so far on this. This is an image of magnetics, an indication of magnetic intensity in the ground on this. And what really excites us as geologists is when we see these central lows, like indicated number 1, 3, 4, surrounded by magnetic highs in this type of an environment, we think of these as potentially skarn mineralization surrounding an intrusive center. So as we move to the north, we anticipate that much of this mineralization will be skarn-style mineralization surrounding this. We've really only tested about 20% of that to date, and we're quite excited to be able to step in that to the north. The style of mineralization we have, there are 2 distinct styles of mineralization here. In the basement rocks, we have skarn with indications of breccias bringing fragments of porphyry-style mineralization. That mineralization to the south in the mine area is overlain by high sulfidation epithermal mineralization. Both contain copper gold. The high sulfidation epithermal mineralization has a metallurgical challenge that there's arsenic associated with it. It's a challenge that can be solved. Many groups are working towards working on this, but what we're interested in as we move to the north, and Joe and Brent have pointed this out in their publications, we're moving into much cleaner style mineralization. So we anticipate that increase in total amount of mineralization being cleaner mineralization as we move to the north. This just shows a little bit of the history. As I mentioned, this is our second company. Our initial company was Antares Minerals. With Antares, we made the discovery of the Kikira deposit, made it through the global financial crisis, and then sold that to First Quantum. From that, we spun out Regulus. We acquired the Antiquary project here. As we've begun to drill it, it started to pick up notice on here. We've recently spun out a third company called Aldebaran Resource on an exciting copper-gold project we've acquired in Argentina. That's a different story. But for initial investors in our team, as we start on it, it's been more than a 1,600% return, but that's come in big jumps like this when we monetize a discovery. For those that were participating in Regulus on the spin-out, it's been about a 250% return. But what we'd like to point out is we're on a similar trajectory here as we set up on a project and it starts to catch the market interest and is finally monetized. We've done the same thing on this now, and we anticipate we'll see a significant jump in the not-too-distant future. we're out at the stand, so we can go through a lot of this stuff for those of you who have more interest. Pretty clean share structure right now, about 91 million shares outstanding, about 11 million in cash, which will allow us to do the work we've anticipated. This is a plot that shows the large copper gold or copper deposits that are in the hands of junior companies like ourselves that are not likely to mine it. These are projects that are potentially available for major mining companies. If we look at Antiquary, just our portion of Antiquary, it's about 8 billion pounds of copper equivalent. When we combine that with what the neighbors have on theirs, we can see that the total Tantuatai Antiquary sulfide project is significantly larger and ranks right up there already with some of the major deposits that are potentially up for sale. If we take a look at our share price, just as a quick guide on how to perhaps value us, what we've noted is that over the past 10 or 12 years, this is 23 M&A transactions of groups that have acquired similar copper or copper gold projects to what we have at Antiquary. The average price paid per pound of copper equivalent in the ground is about 4 cents per pound. We're currently trading at about 1.3 cents per pound. So you can see the potential leverage simply by de-risking the project to the point where it would sell for an average price on this. But we also anticipate that we'll increase the size. So we have the opportunity to drive the value up by moving closer to the point where it might be purchased and also increasing the size. So there's considerable potential to increase share price in a group like us. So thank you for your time on this. Just a quick summary that we've got a really attractive copper gold asset. It will be ready in our mind in about a year from now, and that's when we're hoping that large companies are increasingly interested in acquiring something like this. Thank you for your time.